Before we get started tonight, I just want to acknowledge the sponsors on the screen. I want to say thank you to them for helping make this event possible. And I certainly want to thank each of our panelists for being here tonight and taking time with us. We appreciate that very much. And as we get started here, I'm just going to ask each of them to start with Wesley here on the end and just give us a real quick background on you, Wesley, and the company that you work for. We'll just work right away down.
Sure. Can everybody hear me? Is my mic on? We're good. We're good. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I graduated Grove City in 2015. Graduated with a major in finance. I moved directly out to New York City to be an analyst. I actually thought I wanted to be in investment banking and soon learned that I did not want to sell my soul to 80-hour work weeks or 70-hour work weeks. So I then actually moved into product management. So the way I describe product management is stewarding the life cycle of a product. So I work in cross departments in my company at SD Myers, doing that currently. So I've been out of school for about 5 years, and for 3 of those I've been a product manager.
My name is Julie McCormick. I'm the Executive Director of Pittsburgh Fellows, and we are a postgraduate leadership development program designed to help business majors launch their career in the context of faith, work, and life. And so we provide jobs in your area of major, graduate level classes in professional and spiritual development, mentoring, networking, and communal living, dedicated fellows housing. And so it's a great way to start a career in the area of business with a community of like-minded believers.
David Frick, I graduated in 2009. Did a little stint in China, did accounting for 6 years, and now I'm a financial planner with Axe Advisors. We do comprehensive financial planning for individuals and businesses. And a little difference is our model is we are a business owner mindset. So while I work for a company, I'm a W-2, this for tax people that have done their research, I'm sure, right? We essentially own our book of business. So in addition to learning all the finance stuff, I've had to kind of backtrack and learn that entrepreneurship side that some of you already know.
So I'm the tax person that I was talking about. My name is Carissa Habsburg. I am a 2011 grad, and I graduated with an accounting and Chinese minor. I started at Sisterson directly out of Grove City and have been there ever since for about 8 years. I'm on my 9th year. Sisterson's a little bit different. You start out in both audit and tax, and if I would have said I was going to start, I would have started audit, and here I am, tax manager 8 years later. So what do you know when you come out of college? But Sisterson is a public accounting firm downtown. We do tax, audit, consulting, and it's just it's an interesting environment to be in this world, and accounting it's a lot of fun. You're learning something new every day, every day.
Good evening. My name is Carl Hopkinson. I'm with the Masterscraft Flooring Company. And first, I brought my Wall Street Journal. Okay, it wasn't a good article. I just grabbed it. No, it is great to be back. I'm a Grove City grad as well, business management major, and I work with the Masterscraft Flooring Company. I'm sure no one here is excited about wood flooring, but that's okay. We aren't really either. It's kind of just a tool that we use to conduct business as missions. The way we see that is influencing people beyond our 4 walls for the better, whether that's making our customers successful, our suppliers successful, or using the wealth that's generated from our work to affect people around the world through giving to missionaries or to orphan care and things like that. So kind of a business with a twist. That's kind of one of our differentiating factors, but that's kind of who we are and what we do. So we look to hire character first and then train the skills after the fact. So yeah, that's us.
Good. Well, yeah, thank you for that introduction, and thank you, Carl, for the Wall Street Journal article. You know you're old when a number of the panelists are former students and still here torturing students. So, all right, I've got a few questions here that have been hermetically sealed that I'm pulling out to throw at you. And so we can either kind of take this one at a time, or if there's somebody who wants to field this, we'll just kind of play it by ear. So the first question is, What does recruiting or the interviewing process look like for your company or organization? So if somebody wants to start, Kane, give everybody a chance. What's a typical recruiting process look like at your company?
I will start. I'm a little unique in that we recruit you for our fellowship program, and then you interview with your place of business. So I see both sides of it. For us, to get into the program, we look for initiative, we look for passion, we look for focus, we look for a desire to work with excellence, and a desire to live out your calling, your vocational calling for the glory of the Lord and the benefit of others. And we place you with companies, someone in that company believes in our mission, has authority and a budget, and has gotten us in there, but they're not Christian companies. And so they are looking for much of the same thing, but they are also looking for a desire to give to their company, to be value added, and they are looking for tangible skills and a desire to continue to grow and develop those skills. They are looking for individuals who have some passions about something. Sometimes it doesn't really even matter what that is, but that you have a demonstrated track record of being interested in something and an area and honing your craft in that area, committing to it. And I would say too, curiosity is another across-the-board characteristic that our employers really look for. They want people who want to learn, who want to grow, who are always willing to ask that next question: why does it work that way? What happens when you do this?
Yeah, I'll take a second. So I would say the recruiting process and the interview process work in two different ways, and I think this would be similar across businesses. There's the official path, which is business leader or general manager says to their HR department, hey, we want to backfill this role. We've just had somebody leave, or we know somebody's planning on leaving. We need to post this role, whether it's online or wherever your channels are. And let's actively recruit for this role. And so that's how a lot of people get jobs. On the other hand, there's a lot of people who get jobs that jobs have never been posted. That position doesn't even have a job title. It doesn't even have a position description. And so those two different paths, business leaders and general managers, are often crafting what the future of that business will look like. And so they're looking to hire people that they just have a conceptual model of who it is they want in that role. But until that person is there, they're not going to write it down. And so I think that this conversation we're having is really learning to balance how do you look for a job in an official capacity through job boards, networking, but how do you also present yourself as somebody for jobs that are not titled, are not described in any way, but you were just somebody, like I'm sure we're all going to talk about, somebody who's of high character and curious to learn and want to learn a business and a trade. I will just share that I fell on this alternative path that I never went and posted my resume for official jobs that were open. I just knew that wasn't my area of strength to lead with my resume, so I led with my curiosity and my passion and kind of that ability to learn whatever craft it is I was going to go into.
You mentioned resume. So how much time do you actually spend reviewing people's resumes? Find the candidate and send it to you. How carefully does your company tend to really examine these things?
Go ahead.
I would say it depends. If you are looking at a resume, one of the first things, for better or for worse, that a lot of companies are going to look at is GPA. Your GPA is really important because with so many candidates out there, it's a first and easy way to weed people out. But more importantly, the thing that we're looking for at Sisterston are internships. jobs experience. So that would be something, the next thing that we're going to be looking at. And you can kind of take a look at those resumes and siphon off what's important and what is padding in those resumes. So most importantly, I would say would be internships, as much work experience as you can possibly get. And then the last thing that what will happen in your interview that is most focused on is not your resume. You got into the interview because of your resume. Don't focus on the numbers and everything else, but rather talk about your life, your experiences, what gets you and makes you a really good fit for that job. So how much time? It's like a high-level review and cursory review. Then we drill down into the details. At least that's been our experience. And quite frankly, people who come from Grove City College have a very good handle on that QPA piece. It becomes less about the QPA once you get past that. It becomes more about those individual work experiences and then the time that you're spending not just on work, but perhaps also your extracurriculars, dance, football, marching band, whatever it is. Yes, I was in marching band. So.
Great, thanks, Chris. Anyone else? What jumps out either in a good way or a bad way?
So when we look at a resume, we're going to typically spend 10 to 30 seconds looking at it briefly. And what'll matter is how it was given to us. So if you're coming up in a career fair, if you're giving us in a great manner, or if you sent us an email and wrote a little bit about us or to us, we're going to give you a little more time. And then if we get past that first initial review, we're going to spend 5-10 minutes, have a good look at it. And organization for me matters a lot, right? So we are hiring people to, yes, work under, work for us to a degree, but they're going to own their own practice as well. I want to see that they have the gumption to organize that, because I find that people that are completely disorganized, while they can run a business, so because I know there's entrepreneurs out there that are great at it, it makes it a little more difficult for us to teach them, because we need to be able to talk on the same playing field. I will say accounting GPA matters a lot. I honestly skip past GPA because in our line of work, we care a lot about relationships and the ability to communicate with people. And so that's why how you present that resume to us can matter just as much as what's on that resume to get us to at least look further. So.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what David's saying. We do a real brief overview. What I'm looking for is initiative. So we're a small enough company, about 130 employees, that we don't have big, elaborate 9-month training programs and learning tracks where you know exactly what to do and it's all mapped out for you. We need people with an entrepreneurial mindset that can be given an opportunity, a set of tools, and a group of resources and people there to support them and run with it and go. And so I'm looking for things where you've taken initiative, where you've started something, where you've led something, where you've come up with something to take that ownership and that entrepreneurial spirit. That is going to go a lot further than, for us again. Accountants are smart. We're selling wood floors, it's not rocket science. You got to connect with people. You got to be able to take ownership and leadership, and we need people that can be given that responsibility and in order to run with it. Because I'm looking at places you've already done that in your life. So anytime you have an opportunity to do that type of thing, don't sit and wait for a specific role, a specific opportunity to step into, but be thinking outside the box, how you've created value in places that you've been in your life, even though you're obviously just a student. But you guys have done some incredible, I've seen incredible resumes out of this college, and especially where you just take initiative and ran with an idea. It's like, whoa, I talked to a guy today, he paid for his college with a business he started. I'm like, whoa, yeah, are you sure you want to work for us? You want to start another company? But that's the kind of initiative and ownership that we're looking for on a resume.
To circle back there, I will say, you'll notice that no one spends that much time looking at a resume. It's more the aftermath that you go through.
I do spend a lot of time with ones that are really bad. Yeah, because I'll normally bring it up to like, wow, this is why I don't want to hire them. So it does matter a little bit to blend in. Blending in matters a little bit.
Do tell, what are the things that you see?
So I do like simple one-pagers. I know that there's been some changes in the world since I graduated. I know it's a very strict thing in career services. There was one page. I have seen other universities since then. I think even maybe career service now, I don't know. They've said it's okay to go on a second page. I really like one page. Yeah, because I feel like it is your ability to organize but summarize, right? So, and highlight. I do care about your whole life, but I don't care about it for a few minutes, right? We're going to get to know each other later if I'm going to hire you, and then we'll get to the caring part. So those matter. Lots of white. I don't like lots of white because that shows that you really don't know how to summarize and make it work, right? So I do like to see it, but make it readable too. So, others.
I would just piggyback off of that a little bit and say that, the traditional resume is chronological, and the best resumes, you play around with that and what is most relevant to the position that you are in search of should be first, because you're right, you're going to get 10 seconds. So, education, GPA, and then what have you done? What have you been able to deliver that matches with that particular
Great advice.
Just a few additional comments. As college students, I don't personally believe that a resume could possibly be more than one page. I mean, there's no way that you've done enough that it could go past one page. And further, some kind of crazy things that I've seen. Just this week, we got a resume that was faxed to us that said, quote, smartphone ready. So there are people out there that are not like us, right? There are people who don't understand some of the best practices. And so there are going to be certainly resumes that are worse than yours. You can just be conscious of that you're not going to have the absolute worst resume out there.
Good advice. Yeah, typos are always the ones that I hate.
Spelling.
If you can't proof a one-page document and you have spelling errors, if you're not great, get someone to proof it for you. So, we mentioned QPA, we mentioned internships, we mentioned some of the soft skills. In your opinion, what are the most important things in addition that would help you land a job at your company? And the flip side is, what are things that automatically make you say, this person's not for us?
I think saying your attributes are one thing, but actually exhibiting them to a recruiter or a business manager is another thing. So I'll just mention, today, our company, we got 30 plus resumes. I received, since being here at 5:30, I got an email follow-up. And so you can imagine that person's name is already stuck in my mind. I got 30 resumes. Everybody was forced to pass their resume in the same mechanism, in the same method. And I obviously didn't have any time, but I've got one follow-up email, and now I remember his name. So I think when we're, just looking at sharing your attributes, you can exhibit them in your actions a little bit better than you can write about them. Like, I'm good at follow-up, and I've got grit, and I follow through. Well, I know all those things now, based on what has been done.
I'll go a different route. I'll go skills, at least from an accounting perspective, even just business in general. You would be surprised how many people don't know how to use Excel. I'm not kidding. Practice Excel. Formulas, it is incredible. If you want to go into a business world, we don't use pen and paper anymore, although you can. But my 10 key and I, we get along great. But computers, Excel, if you're hard keying numbers in Excel, practice your formulas. Go out, there's so many Excel YouTube videos out there. I would say if someone comes in and exhibits that right off the bat, I want that new person on all of my jobs because they make my life easier looking at a tax return or whatever it is that I'm reviewing. But also it exhibits that they're trying to make my life easier, and that's kind of also the goal when you're trying to show you know what you're doing. I just think Excel is an incredible tool. Learn it, use it, love it.
Yeah, one of our regional managers actually made an Excel test where we had all these steps to it and hidden formula and all this kind of stuff, and it's just kind of sequential to see how far you can get. And it's you just bring it out. So when you said Excel, and I said yeah, you say okay, here you go. It's like wait, hold on, do I really know Excel? Yeah, that's true. It's a huge benefit to be able to use a tool like that efficiently.
Great. Anything that a potential candidate would do in an interview that would automatically make you think this getting a cell phone in the middle of interview. What are total terms?
Those all happen.
Yeah, those have happened.
Yeah, I'd say showing a lack of confidence. And the worst way, the most common way to show a lack of confidence is by using terminology that is not straightforward and defined, right? So I kind of like that. I think this is a good idea. Lack of, rather than saying, I believe I would be good for this job and I like it. You don't have to say, you don't have to go into the extreme details and say all your emotional qualms and such. Those are going to come out, and you're not going to be perfect for every job, because that's by far going to happen. But be confident about the words you use, don't just throw them out there.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, actually, we had an employer turn, it wasn't one of our fellows, but someone else applied for it. Turn him around, send him right back out the door because he came without a resume, without a folder, no book, and anything, and just came empty-handed.
I remember one of the most evil questions I got in an interview was, what do the people who know you best like least about you? That is a killer, right? Because it's sometimes, what's your biggest weakness? But this kind of permeates, keeps evolving like some kind of virus. So, now that that question's out there, and a lot of these kids will have to deal with that, what does a recruiter want to hear? Whenever you ask, what is your biggest weakness? What makes you think that's a good answer?
For us, we talk about this a lot. I want honesty and transparency, because telling me that you work too hard or you're a perfectionist, so you'll stay up late getting something just right and you need to calm down a little bit. It's like, okay, you've thought of that one ahead of time. I really want to, we have weaknesses. Like, you don't have to pretend like you don't or try to spin it completely. I see through that. Maybe other people would think differently, but for me, I just want you to know yourself and understand yourself, and be able to communicate that. I'm really good at this. I excel at this. I'm not good at this. I'm willing to work on it, but I know I'm not good at it. And when I hear that kind of candidness from a candidate, it might be something that's not even going to be an issue in the position, or we can think about, well, I love this person, but because they have that weakness, I want to find a different position for them because it'll be tailored better to them. So be candid. The last thing you want is to present an image of yourself that's not even true. You get stuck in a job based on all these things we've heard, and then it's like, well, this wasn't a good fit. Well, you didn't tell me any of this stuff. So be candid. You guys are good candidates. You are going to have opportunities for good jobs coming out of school. So make sure you're presenting your true self. Know yourself enough to know what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you would enjoy, what you wouldn't enjoy. And then just be honest. And at least from my perspective, that honesty rings true and makes me want to find a place for you, because I feel like I have a really accurate picture of who you are, as opposed to have a fake one or gloss over one.
I think this will work really well. I'll tell you one of my biggest weaknesses in the professional world is I stink at spelling, which we've just mentioned matters. And I've often turned around and said, yeah, but you know what, I typically have it reviewed or I utilize the tools available to me. So I understand it and I show my support structure, right? With my current job, a lot of my clients don't see me writing notes. I will write them after. There's ways to go around your weaknesses, and employers know that they can utilize someone that knows what their weaknesses are still. That's okay. So now you all know it.
That's great.
Good thing none of you are employers, right?
Great. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid in an interview when asked a question and needed a process. Like, for instance, I remember a question I got. This wasn't the greatest weakness, but it was, how many windows are in New York City? Okay, and it's obviously a more technical question. They want to see, hey, how do you think about this? And I feel like when you're asked a question like that, you kind of have an out-of-body experience, like, oh my gosh, the recruiter's staring at me, I'm staring at me, what's going on? And it's like, in the business world, you'll never be asked a question where you don't have time, you don't have a team, you don't have paper, you don't have a resource like Excel to work through. So don't be afraid to use your pad of paper that's in front of you, that you brought, that you remembered to bring. And, start writing down your, train of thought. Because I remember I tried to work through it in my head, and I was just spitting out exactly what I was thinking. Like, okay, there's probably 150 streets, I don't know, and this many buildings on a street. So, don't be afraid to use those resources that are, even if it's a pad and paper, because it'll show that you have the ability to stop, take a deep breath, and start working through something.
Great. So in addition to having a resume that's one page and that is truthful and has good spelling on it, and in addition to knowing kind of my weakness and being honest when I go into an interview, what else could these people do to prepare well for an interview?
Bring questions. One of our ways to determine whether or not someone's actually serious about the job is actually the length it takes them to answer our questions and then ask us questions. Because it determines whether or not they really want to know about the job and actually are serious about it, or they just want a job. Because if you just want a job, you're probably going to be gone within a year or two, and that's not the person we want. Now, I understand that happens from time to time, but we want people that are going to stick with it. And you have to think about what you're going into if you're going to stick with it, right? At least that's what I think.
I think that you need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. In an interview setting, you get questions like, how many windows are in New York? Who asks that? But they're asking it to hear what your thought process is. How can you logic it out? When you're uncomfortable in a situation, you're going to get uncomfortable in others. So my goal would be to make sure that I can put you in front of a client. It's not always going to be a comfortable conversation. Sometimes clients just don't want to talk right then and there if you're in audit or tax, consulting in general. Sometimes you have to ask the tough questions. Why is this the way that it is? Shouldn't it have been X instead of Y? So in an interview setting, it's not always a comfortable thing. But if you want to prepare, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Put yourselves in situations where you might not always know the answers or know the reason why there's 7 million windows in New York City, whatever the answer is. So that's one of my biggest pieces of advice. And you can tell when someone is comfortable being uncomfortable when they stop. Wait a moment, let me think. Rather than saying the first answer that comes to mind, because that's where you can get in trouble. In my line of work, I give advice to clients. I need to make sure that the advice that I give is correct advice. And I'm okay saying, sorry, I don't know the answer to that question, but I know someone who does, or I will get back to you. And that is okay. And you can do that in an interview. And that follow-up after the fact, that email, that in and of itself shows you have follow-up. It shows that you didn't know the answer, you didn't lie, and you had the ability to follow up after the fact. So all of that kind of dovetails, in my opinion.
Great. Now, you mentioned follow-up. That's a great question. I just interviewed with you. What should I do or not do to follow up after an interview?
That day, there should be an email in everyone's inbox who you met. So you want to try and gather that information, business cards, whatever, along the way. And within 3 days, there should be a handwritten note, again, to everyone who you met with. And the email and the note should be specific, because you brought your journal in and you took notes. You should reference what someone said to you. Thank you for explaining the operating process of the department or whatever. The letter and the email should mention 2 different things as well. I think those are key. Handwritten notes set you apart like almost nothing else right now because it's so rare.
Yeah, they definitely are. I meet with a lot of prospective students and their families, and I got a handwritten note from a young girl in high school who was here just to talk with me about maybe coming to Grove City. And I remember that. That's very impressive that she took the time to handwrite this thing. And so, any other advice? Email follow-up on the day and handwritten notes?
I like constant contact a little bit. So not just one email, but a day or 2 later saying, hey, again, I was thinking about the position. I really am excited. What's the next step? Do you need anything from me? Just continue to show that you're willing to work for the position, not just sit back and wait for a response. Now, I fully appreciate other jobs are a little bit more like, hey, there's a deadline, you submit, and then you wait. Ours is we're hiring year round, so people that are constantly contacting us are going to get through the process faster. They're probably going to move up the ranking because we want to see that enthusiasm for the position. Handwriting works, but sometimes that has to be through email. I fully appreciate that too. So both methods are useful.
And if I could just comment on, I can imagine there's a lot of people here who are not immediately graduating to get their first job. But there's stuff that you can be doing during your freshman, sophomore, junior year, even if it's not an internship. And this was something we discussed a little, Dr. Powell and I discussed a little earlier. And in fact, a student came out and visited me, but it's essentially just identifying people in your network, I'll call it your network, that you look up to in any way. And, you know, it can be as candid as saying, hey, I appreciate what you do in the industry, or we have a family connection. Like, I just want to learn about what you do. Tell me what you do and how you do it. And oftentimes, that is kind of that other avenue of getting a job, which is, it's not the hard deadline. It's not sending them in the resume. It's just showing the initiative to say, I want to learn what you do, how you do it. And then maybe 3 years down the road, you're at the doorstep trying to get a job. But you've gotten there because you've shown the interest to job shadow for a few hours, or go out to lunch, or create a few specific questions to show up and just have an hour meeting to say, how does this industry work? Like, I'm a college student, I really don't know how this works. You know, there's some expectations that we set as employers on college students, but knowing how complex industries work and how jobs and departments work, that's not an expectation. So freely ask those questions. You know, what does it mean when you say you're a business manager? What does it mean that you're a tax or audit, or, you know, some of those things you should know, but what does that mean for your daily role? You know, feel free to ask those questions prior to interview day, or I need a job tomorrow day, you know, the years before freshman, sophomore, junior year.
Good advice. So we've heard from 5 of you in a varied degree of organizations, and there's some commonalities here. So hopefully the students have heard some things. What are some things I should do to prepare for an interview? What are some things I can expect and I should try to accomplish in the interview? What should I do after the interview? And like Wesley mentioned, if you are an underclassman and you aren't looking for a job yet, these are similar things that you should be doing for an interview for an internship. So hopefully we've given you a few practical ideas. Those are the questions that I kind of wanted to ask, so I'm leaving about 10 minutes for any of your questions. What are you thinking about? What do you want to ask these people since you will be going through this process? I'll just be filled on anyway. Okay.
Hi, my name is Sarah Robinson. My question was, how do you practice being comfortable in uncomfortable situations? How can you practice that?
That is a wonderful question, and at least in my opinion, one of the ways that I tried to do it whenever I was in school was I had a job. I worked at Best Buy in Geek Squad. Yes, nerd, alert. Having a role with the public, talking to people who are going to come up to you and ask good questions, but also not so good questions out there. And then another way that you just mentioned is go out and network. If you have something that you enjoy doing, whether it's going to the cinema or a show, anything like that, talk to people you might not know, start up a conversation. Sometimes conversations lead down the road to those jobs that you're not going to get right now, but now you've just met someone who you can introduce yourself to at a later date. Oh, remember, I talked to you on such and such date. So talk to people, answer questions, ask questions, and strike up a conversation that's not one-sided with your surroundings. Everyone's willing to talk. Like, everyone wants to tell their story.
Yeah, I'll put in a plug too. I was not paid to say this, but be a Crimson Caller. I did that in college, calling alumni, asking for money. Super awkward. You don't know them, they don't know you. They're in the middle of dinner, you're asking for money. But for the professional world, particularly in sales, that was great training. You have nothing to lose. You're getting paid by the hour, and you're just having conversations. You're finding ways. You have a little list of the things that they did when they were on campus, and you find a connection or a way in to kind of break through that initial, like, oh, this is a stranger calling. And to get past that and to try to cultivate that conversation. So that's just one example of something I know on campus that helped me prepare me for those types of situations. But like you said, just anything like that, putting yourself into those jobs. Maybe instead of finding a job on campus that's not just a background, you don't have to be in an awkward situation, but maybe a little bit more upfront if that's something that's uncomfortable for you. Put yourself in that role. It's very low risk, trust me. The lowest risk you will get is like working at Grove City College, you know, interface with other students. So it only goes more difficult for me. So no, it's we're all kind of family here, so there's an inherent trust. So start now. Yeah.
Anybody else, what other questions you have?
Can I just comment really quick on that?
Yeah, please.
The business plan competition and innovation and product pitch competition, I'm not sure of the exact name of the second one at the moment, but if you participate in those, you are undoubtedly going to be in awkward situations where people know more about your business than you do. And when somebody asks you about what's your burn rate, you never even heard that before. You're going to be forced to reckon with, okay, I don't even know what department or what are they talking about product? Are they talking about, employee turnover? Are they talking about cash flow? I don't even know. And those situations will force you to think through things before you encounter it. And you can bet your bottom dollar you're going to know what burn rate is or whatever the question is. You're going to know it after because you're going to go research it. So like the product pitch and the business plan competitions, those put you in some pretty uncomfortable situations.
Practice.
Good, other question?
So you've prepared questions for an interviewee, were mentioned earlier. What are some questions that interviewees can ask in order
Specific. Go to their website, find something or someone you might have a connection with. Hey, I saw Carissa Habsburg is a Grove City grad. Do you work with her? What does she do? What is the day in her life? I work for not-for-profits. Oh, what kind of not-for-profits? I had an internship there. Specific questions. Tell me about these not-for-profits that you're working with. Specific. I mean, that was to accounting. I don't know what your major is, but that was accounting.
I would say, number one, ask a question that you can find the answer to on the website or LinkedIn. And that you should save your question time for understanding things like their leadership style, interpersonal workings among departments, what the culture is like, those types of areas to help you figure out if you're going to be a good fit for them. And again, something that they don't look at and think, well, if you just spent 10 minutes, you would have done this about us.
Yeah, and another indication on how to get some of those answers, at the end, if you're looking for a pre-planned question that's not specific, you can say, hey, I'm really interested in the industry or your business. What's one book that I can read that would give me an understanding in this? And oftentimes, the one or two or maybe 5 books that come to that person's mind have formed a lot of their system or their process or their leadership style. And then you can actually go and read that book. And then you can tell them about how you read that book, and that's your connection. That's your point of connection.
Yeah, I like questions that dig in deeper. Like I can tell you've done your research, but we only have so much information out there online, and you want to get deeper. You say, I've read this, I've read about this, but I want to know more in this specific way that plays out in your company. So showing you're prepared and you want to learn more focused information about the company is also, a good question to ask.
Go ahead, Caitlin.
At what point during the recruiting, hiring process do you think it's appropriate to ask about salary and benefits?
We ask you in the first interview. Maybe that's different than other people, but we just say, how much do you want to make? And it gets really awkward for people, like you haven't thought about that, like seriously? I understand if you don't want to say too much and seem greedy, you don't want to say too little and shortchange yourself, but it's a question that we ask you because it shows kind of how much thought you put into life after school, who else you've been talking to. It helps us get a feel for the market out there as well from a recruiter standpoint. And so, I would say, for us, we're never offended. Our president always says, I'm not offended if you ask, if you're not offended with the answer. So questions like that, You know, it shouldn't be your walk in the door and ask it. That's a pretty, we want to know that you're interested for things beyond just the income potential. But certainly, for me, if it's done with the right spirit and in the right context, you have to be a little bit emotionally intelligent to know when that's the case. But done in the right way, to me it shows, especially if I'm looking for a salesperson, like you're not afraid to go right at it and ask a question at some point when it's appropriate.
Yeah, I think I agree. We talk about that in the first interview because we are sales driven as well, right? So you get to dictate how much you make based on how hard you work and what you want to aim for as far as your target market, et cetera. But in the accounting world, if I can speak to that, I never asked. That's sad. I don't.
I asked either.
I think what I did do though is once I received the contract, I did comment on it. So I think it's a little bit industry sensitive, and it'll also take in perspective who you are and who you want to work for, right? So as we all know, there are missions and there are values that are more important than money. That's generally a Grove City principle, and money does matter, right? But at the same degree, keep in mind that this is your first job, and they are taking a big risk with you, right? So just be respectful, and honestly what can happen is, and I have had this happen, where the first year was not great. The second year I went back and said, hey, you know what, I feel like I didn't get enough and I would like to have more, and the next year is much, much bigger, right? To raise that for the first year after you prove yourself. So I think it depends. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then to say one step further in accounting, it's not always about the salary, but more about balancing the benefits. So in the world that we live in, the benefits cost a lot of money, right? So some providers will, like Sister Sid, when I first started out, pay for our entire health insurance. That's unheard of out there. And in that situation, salary might not have been as high, but I also didn't have to fork out X amount of dollars for health insurance. So when you're comparing across the board, yes, fit culturally, if this is a good job for you, yes, that's very important, but it's across the board, not just salary. Pay attention to those other benefits. Vacation time, how long you have to be there before you get 2 weeks of vacation, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Personal leave, all of those different pieces, it's not just salary.
And they'll like to talk about the benefits.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
That's something that
That's a big
companies love to
seller.
talk about because they do take pride in that and they do want to make sure that they're in good order for their employees. So that's a benefit, and that shows research too.
Yes.
Their website.
That's great. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time because we want to keep our promise that this would be over at 7. So if you would just help me welcome or thank these people for participating. And if you registered, we're also going to do a prize drawing right now.
Thank you, Dr. Powell, for leading us here this evening. So, let's see, Dr. Powell, maybe you can help me.
I would like to
All right, first we've got a blanket here. So, raffle off blanket, and I hope I don't butcher anybody's name here. So, Joe Abramovich. Joe, is Joe here?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I also have 2 portfolios that EY donated for us, and she's going to send those in the mail to me. So I will give your name to Mrs. Stillwagon, and she'll help keep me accountable when those come in, and we'll get them to you. All right. So let's see. The first one, Jonathan Ski. Is Jonathan Ski here? Over here. All right, Mrs. Stillwagon. For a portfolio. Yep. Joe Pulaski. Let's see. I saw Joe somewhere. Great. All right. And then we've got our earbuds. So I'm probably dating myself as to what I'm calling these things here, but Grace DeLavy. Great. And we have an Echo Dot, Shelley Quinn. Shelley? No? Oh, no. All right. Let's see. Cam Sedgwick. Cam, are you here? No. Still up for grabs. Still up for grabs here. All blank one, okay. Olivia Whiteman. And then our last prize is a Bluetooth speaker with a case.